This is Mike Feldbauer coming to you from the Flagler Voice podcast studio. As you saw on the intro, I'm not Alan Lowe. He's normally here, but he's out of town at the moment. So I'm filling in for him on the I Told show. We're here at the Flagler Voice podcast studio, being powered by the U.S. News and Entertainment Network. Today, our guest his name is Chad Raymond. I saw a post of Chad's a little while ago when he's talking about the current issue that's going to be coming up on the November ballot about property tax. And I've seen a lot of negative stuff being thrown around. And most of what I see being thrown around are people that are guessing or heard somebody say something, but haven't done the research to find out what the truth is. How, if this bill gets passed, how is it going to affect us in our community? And Chad's done that. So I've invited him in to come in today because he's done the research, and I want you to hear what he has found. I'll also encourage you, when you hear what he has to say and you have any questions, do your own research. Find the truth. We can't just go to the November ballot and do an emotional yes or no. We have to do what's going to be the best and the benefit to our community. So, Chad, let's hear you. You're on.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Mike. It's a pleasure. I will say, just a caveat on your introduction there, I certainly did not have on my 2026 bingo card being on a talk podcast or any of the newspaper articles I have in favor of a political debate. As I've voiced publicly, it's not beneficial as a small business owner to take controversial positions. And truth be told, I'm kind of surprised that I am in a controversial position just because of what's at stake here and where Florida's precedent has stood and what we're talking about. But, to add to what you've talked about with me, I just want people to know, truthfully, I'm a patriot with a passion. I have a history of service. I did 20 years in the Air Force and Air Force Reserves. I was a law enforcement officer in Volusia County for 10 years, and I enlisted in 2002, if that tells you anything about who I am. I watched the buildings get hit with those planes by our terrorists, and I have been always type of person that's filled with a deep-rooted passion for patriotism, defending in any way I can, contributing, and it's led to me to who I am today as a father, a family man, and most importantly, what I really want to clearly state up front is I'm a person that believes that everything I do on this earth will have eternal consequences.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to put that out there. I'm a devout Christian man. I'm not going to come out here and spew for some biased political action committee how I feel about this to get myself elected, to get rich. That has nothing to do, despite the claims that have been waged against me recently online of my supposed bias for this. I'm a normal guy. I don't live in a gated neighborhood. I've lived in Palm Coast now for 20 years. You come by my house on a Saturday and see me and my kids mowing our lawn. I go to the beach in Flagler, surf with my kids out in the water, socialize with my friends, do my best to play a game of golf occasionally. And I'm here because what I was reading was alarming to me, Mike. It was the government entities and people who have very close connections to government people coming out to scare the public away from a long overdue tax break for the people who have been pinched and stretched far beyond where they should be at this state. And it's just downright insulting to me that some of the tactics that have been used against the very people to scare them away from this topic. So I've been having private conversations with people in my circle, and we've been talking about this since it was originally pitched by the governor. And I started to read these articles and these posts by people in government and in community. And the more I looked into it, the more I became just overwhelmingly disturbed by what I was finding. Gross negligence of overlooking both sides of this by all the people that were involved. And when I looked into the bipartisan support behind this, the amount of votes it received, the approval process it went through, and really the truth behind the precedents that Florida has, Floridians for many years now, as I keep saying, have made it very clear that protecting Floridians from excessive property tax, a lot of taxation, but property tax is not something new for us. This is going on almost 90 years of history of Floridians having their Boston Tea Party moment and saying, get off of my property.
Yes.
I'm not going to end up like these other states. And I hope we start talking about it. I've traveled all over the place and I've seen other states where the local population, Hawaii is a good example. I was out there with the Air Force and you go talk to some Hawaiians and I had an opportunity to talk to some Hawaiians living in tents at a beach with $1 million houses on them. These are native Hawaiians. And you talk to them, they say, we can't afford to live here. We can't afford to live here. We've been completely priced out. We're living in tent cities. There's kids in there. They're getting government subsidies. It's a disaster. Texas is dealing with this right now. Colorado, the more I've looked into it, the more this issue has come to the front lines. Florida, like I said, has a very well supported precedent for homestead exemptions. Where we're at today, the diminished, eroded state of people like you that have been here and people that are coming here is just downright diabolical. It's eroded its way down to a minuscule level. At the same time, while the budgets have swelled to historic highs, year-over-year returns and increases, spending that is just unbelievably out of control, our very elected peoples in this county, some of them shaking their fists at their own county staff members, demanding, these numbers don't make sense to us. Where is this money going? And they're faced with a roadblock, a brick wall. We've given you the budgets. What's this line item here? We'll have to get back to you. Our own elected officials who come out the gate hard and heavy for relief are being met with resistance from the staff here. And that's downright sad to me. It's as equally as sad to me as using our frontline workers as the pawns, taking your firefighters, your police officers, the guy right now who's directing traffic with a bulletproof vest on and 35 pounds of gear, who's being told, you better pay attention. We're going to cut your overtime. They're going to come for you. They're being used to push this propaganda by the government machine that's here to use them to be the ones to fight against their own tax relief and to convince their neighbors.
Yeah. The problem is it's all based on fear because
Correct.
they feel fear will control.
Correct. And these are the things that as I sat in the comfort of my own home, running our family business with my two boys, teenagers here in school, I said, somebody's got to come out and talk about the other side of this equation. And this is just downright, it's insulting to the public. Honestly, it really is. Nobody wants to admit or address the fact that the homestead protection we have today has been eroded to a less than half of what it was before the property values skyrocketed. That's a big point. Everybody in the opposition won't admit it and they don't want to adjust it. And they don't want to talk about some of the recent audits that our state has done of our own financing, finding out of control growth and unchecked spending. And there may be some validity to people claiming there's problems with the so-called audit that the state did. I'm not going to discredit that. I'm not going to say it was a forensic auditing, but you certainly can't overlook the amount of fluff that was pointed out, not just here either, but across the state. So again, like I said, this is a moment where it's time for Floridians, patriotic, tax-paying Americans as a whole, especially here in Floridians, to stand up and say, no. Sit down, government. We are not going to be fed this. We are going to do something for us as Floridians. We're going to restore what's been eroded away from us while the counties and municipalities and the state's gotten rich. We're having our seat at the table, and we're going to force the government back into its cage and provide relief for hardworking Floridians, families, seniors, renters, people that have just moved here. Things that have been complained about for years by our local officials.
Yeah.
Our local officials field complaints of brand new residents who claim that their taxes are double what their neighbors is. Guess what? This is going to be a huge fix for those people. The people that stand to win the most, believe it or not, are the recent transplants here from COVID timeframe. They're going to benefit, in my estimations, anywhere from $200 to $500 a month in just tax reductions alone. It's going to be in the thousands of dollars per year for a lot of the newly transplanted people here. And I'm basing that off our median home value here, which hovers around $340, $350 in Flagler County, and what this exemption increase is going to bring to them. This is meaningful relief that is well within the bounds of the precedents that Florida has set in decades come to this point. So that's where we're at.
I think some of the fear that's being created from whatever the sources are, and when the government sees local governments, whether it's county or city, all over the state, and they see this happening, they're starting to realize they're going to have to do some very serious budgeting And when they do that, they're going to prove what you're saying. We're not going to lose services.
Right.
We're not going to lose service. That's not what's going to happen.
Yes.
And that fear factor, the fact that they're trying to tell us that we're going to lose fire and law enforcement.
Right.
No, I don't believe that's going to happen. Everybody, all departments are going to have to look at their budget
Sure.
because we have to learn how not to waste.
Sure.
And it's gotten so far out of hand,
Correct.
okay, that people aren't in those positions aren't even seeing it.
Yeah.
But that's the fact.
It is the fact. The fact is that the budgets have increased. Because I've been pressed on this issue, I have done significant research on the Consumer Price Index. And there's even something that I'm new to learning about called the MCI, the Municipality Consumer Index, right? And the MCI, I've ran these numbers. It's almost half of the growth in which our budgets have swelled up to. So while our budgets have swelled up to 100+%, almost doubling, especially when you strip out a lot of the enterprise fund stuff or the non-discretionary, you get back to our general and you really dive into these budgets. You look at the unbelievable growth they've experienced as a result of this increase in property values, and you can really take a look and see how far they've outpaced both the CPI, which has been around 30 roughly percent over this 6-year period, and the MCI, which hovers somewhere close around that that 34%, right? And we're talking about 119% increase in these budgets. Here's an interesting fact for you. The Flagler County budget, all 484 pages of it, which let me tell you, I'm intimately familiar with now.
480
484 pages for the adopted 2025-2020. And you ought to read it. It's a lot of, look how good we've done. Look at these awards we've done for, it's
a lot of backslash.
There's a lot going on in there. And I'm not here to be disrespectful, but there's a lot before we can get into what these numbers are doing. And even our elected officials, like I said, they look at this stuff and they're like, what's in this line item number 1107? It's comprehensive to say the least. This is not easy work here. We need people that are really willing to do the work to get into this, But when you look at it, you'll see $335+ million in Flagler County. You go look at City of Palm Coast, almost $700 million. Between those two, you're pushing $1 billion in government money and 140,000 people here in Flagler County. Almost $1 billion with just those two municipal budgets alone. But we're broke. We're running a deficit. We need money for beach restoration. It's the most disastrous thing to look at these budgetary items. And then you go back and look at what's been going on with the county commission meetings. Those elected officials, they're hitting walls against their questions not getting answered, both at the city and county level. And then you look at their same budgets. Here's a good one for you, Mike. I'm going to share this one. Flagler County Strategic Plan explicitly lists economic vitality as one of the top 4 pillars. And it puts goal number 1 under diversify and enhance the tax base to improve the local economy, straight from the Flagler County's budget. Palm Coast, very similar statements in their SAP dashboard. They've got a predominant graphic that says economic growth and diversifying the tax base as core priorities to lower residential burdens. They've got this printed in their publication. Here's the fun part. Between about pages 84 and 89 in Flagler County's budget is where we start talking about the investment they're making into economic development. Now, it's no secret I volunteer as a volunteer member, unpaid. I file Form 1 disclosures to the state, along with some incredible residents that live in this county. Highly capable people with phenomenal resumes have volunteered to help this county with solutions for economic development. The county has one full-time position for economic development, one. They've got about $228,000 in that line item between pages 84 and 87 for economic development. And when you strip out salaries, it's about $50,000-ish in their operational fund for economic development. Now think about the irony of economic vitality as being goal number 1 with diversifying the tax base. And when you strip away even the general fund away and look at what that actually looks like from a percentage, it's 0.06% of the money going to economic development in that department in their own budgets. Palm Coast, almost very similar. It's less than 1%, the amount of money that they actually put into exploring economic viability options. And we keep hearing the same excuses to the public over and over again. The residential growth, we're bound by law. comp plan excuses. Nobody wants to sit back and develop actual common sense solutions. Let's develop an emergency working group right now. What can we do by law? What can we do to incentivize people that own these big chunks of land, people that are in development phases right now, to change gears? Let's make them think twice about putting a big PUD out there, a CDD. What kind of incentives can we do to come up with something that will actually produce a balanced economic system here, where we have non-ad valorem tax bases coming into the county rather than making this a bedroom community into eternity until there's not a single parcel of land left? What do people do? What do I, if on the weekends, we go to Daytona. If I want to go to Best Buy, Tanger outlets, I'm going down there and spending my money. People going north to St. Augustine outlets. They're going to Jacksonville. They're going to Orlando. What are we doing? We're just starting to develop the commercial stuff. It's far overdue. It's time to take it serious.
And I believe that we have enough people just in our community, like you, that could sit together as a committee to work on developing good economic development for our county, our city, for doing that. Because they're in the midst of it. How many entrepreneurs do we have in Flagler County?
The Hammock area,
and
the people we
all,
have.
all over. I was on the Economic Development Committee for Westerly, Rhode Island, where I moved here from. And it was, except they had one city councilor sit with us, okay, because he was
right.
But the rest of us were all local small business people.
Yeah.
And worked on programs that try to keep it within the parameters of what our city was like without changing that, but still bringing in more jobs. Because like every city that I've grown up in and lived in, after a while, and you've got to be concerned, your kids grow up here but won't be able to live here.
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's just going to be one big neighborhood, Mike. I want to hit on that point real quick, because we need to give credit where credit's due. In Flagler County, our economic development manager is one of the sharpest young men I've ever worked with in county government. This young man came in out the gate and he is swinging at the fences. His work is solid. He's doing everything the county will let him do with his budget, right? Which is nothing. We should be having a quarterly economic development conference right here in Flagler. We should be showing off what we have to offer. Think about this place. We've got the beach, I-95. We've got US 1 that connects I-95 to the north and south of us with a rail corridor just to the west of that. It's like you were designing an ideal environment. You've got your residential communities to the east of US 1, go to the beach, don't have to cross through big commercial sectors and industrial. And we've got everything out west primed for light industrial, common sense stuff that makes sense commercial. Why are we not taking advantage of this? Why are we not redirecting funds, whether it's through our CRAs or the different programs we've got in the budget, to immediately make it a priority to develop pad-ready sites and incentivize these companies to come in here? I would just want to piggyback on this. That economic development team, the tourism department, these are phenomenally people. Every time they do something, they knock it out of the park. I just read an article about them. They spent a little bit of money doing some targeted ad campaign. The returns were astronomically high, how successful it was. Even in the face of proving that they can do economic projects, their budget's 0.06%.
And it can be done. If we look at what we have, you know what Hargrove Gate is?
Yeah.
Okay. That one strip has over 200 businesses on it.
Sure.
So if we developed other areas like that, okay, which is light retail, light industrial, that will have jobs for people.
Yes.
I mean, and we have that do it. But if they just tear it all down and put a house up,
yeah,
we're going to run out of those spaces.
Right. Yeah. So, to summarize that point, there's plenty of opportunity. We've got Rev Grant. We've got something called the Rev Grant. We've got impact fees. And now we've got industrial development revenue bonds. We just approved we're trying to push through our first one. It's supposed to go before the Board of County Commissioners soon. We're excited about this stuff. These are real people trying to make a meaningful difference. You should see the application pool when they decided to announce the Industrial Development Authority in Flagler Beach. I was humbled and grateful to have been selected. The people that applied for this, it's like a dream roster for a Fortune 500 executive board. These people that come here have incredible talents. They're willing to volunteer as retirees. Some of them, they've run some big businesses. They want to be involved, and they're hitting the same wall of stagnant staff that just refuses to come on board and actually provide meaningful solutions. The time has passed to debate this from a partisan level and play politics. politics. They need to start doing this now. Special working groups, economic development, joint meetings with city, county staff. Immediately, they need to start making this a priority. It's a big deal. So back to Amendment 3, I, the questions have been running all over the place and they're running deep. The budgets, the amount we did for decades, we had balanced ratios. I mean, think about this: 28% was the average protection that most Floridians got. Now we're below 12. It's actually where we're at, 12 to below 12. So every single time, if you look back through the historical changes that have come in Florida, every time there's been one, and 2008 was the big one, every time it's been directly related to the balance of the market, right? The market gets one-sided, it gets lopsided, and it's up to the legislator to present, and it's always pushed by the voters. There's substantial precedence and approval for it. And the same thing happens every time. I was reading headlines from '08 from the we can't afford this. It was like deja vu. Scare them into there. You're going to have potholes in your road. Your park's going to have weeds in them. I've heard it all over the past couple of weeks, So we have got precedence for being able to do this. Enough with the excuses. I think it's pretty clear. I was delighted to see the recent results from the FCAR debate question and air that was held for the candidates currently running. Vast majority of them were a resounding yes on Amendment 3, which that's delightful to me. If you're voting no, or if you're on the fence, or if you think now's a good time to give the typical politician answer, well, I think it's a good thing, but I want to see the numbers. Floridians are over this type of stuff. We don't want lukewarm candidates who we can't tell what they're for and what they're in favor for. At least come out and make an opinion. At least stand up for what you believe in and make a point. I can respect somebody that does that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. There's no maybes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't play politics with this one.
No,
you're either telling I'm for big government or I'm for the average Floridian right now.
You know that I've been in sales and marketing most of my life, and the maybes were always removed.
Yeah.
Don't spend time on the maybes.
Sure.
Yes and no.
Sure.
If you're at a point where you can't make up your mind, or go and do the research to get it done, then get out.
Yeah.
As a salesman, I didn't have time to spend with a lot of babies. A few days depending on what market I was in.
You're wasting my time.
And you don't do it in a negative way, but I've got to move on to where I can
be effective.
And if you're a no, let me know a no.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we go from there.
Yeah.
But yes,
what we're seeing now is disappointing, but it should be expected, right? You can't put the fox in charge of the hen house and expect an accurate count of the chickens, right? They're going to try to protect their budgets, even despite a record high. I think last year's budget increased at the county level by a little over 13%. Just last year alone, we creeped up 13%. And when you really dive into the numbers, they're claiming like a 60% slash of the budget. It's like the biggest shell game known to man. They're putting all the stuff from like Palm Coast that includes all the enterprise funds for the water and the big stuff that makes it the $700 million. And then they're showing what percentage, of the homesteaded, just to overinflate that number to push the fear. The reality is, if they were to provide a comprehensive understanding, let's call the property appraiser, what percentage of homes, sir, are actually homesteaded in Flagler County? Thank you. On year one, with the 150 bump, not the full 250, tell us on year one what we're looking at. I've done that math. It's not as huge of a dip as they're saying it is. On year two, guess what? It turns out to be even more, somewhere around $11 and $14 million in year two, based on my research. If anything, it keeps them flat. It slightly dips. It definitely does, but it brings things back to what we have always said as Floridians we demand here as Floridians.
And that two-step process also gives the governments a chance to really do some serious budgeting. You're not telling us all got to be done tonight.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then you have a phased-in approach. Nobody wants to talk about what do American people do when they save a little bit of money in their pocket? Let's say you save $2,000 this year on your property tax. What do most Americans do with the extra $2,000?
We're going to spend it.
We're going to spend it. And I'm not saying it's going to make its way back into ad valorem tax base, but people are going to spend the money. It's time to get smart.
Yeah, we want to encourage that spending to be local.
That's right.
Get back to the economic development.
That's right. We're going to our neighbor's place and spending the money, and then we're wondering why we got no money here other than residential bedroom-based community. It's enough's enough.
You've got the two teenagers. I have a daughter that's in her 40s now. They love Palm Coast, but they said why would they live here?
Yeah,
because they see what's happening, and they've got a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
so that's just
not
if there was economic development, jobs,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and a progressive build out,
Yeah.
not trying to reach the overall goal in 2
Right.
years
Right.
that was supposed to be over a longer period of
Right.
time.
Right.
So,
If anything, they should be very grateful for the current version of HJR 1F that we have because the initial requests were much more aggressive. This is an actual compromise in favor of government. And, it's disingenuous to look in the face of your constituents out here, your voters who are seniors on a budget a lot in this community. I've been in thousands of houses in this community, thousands, and talked to the people. I'm seeing it every day, Mike. I'm seeing it. And you're going to look at them. They're trying to buy their first house, raise a family, make ends meet with rising insurance costs, inflation. They were promised from this administration to the next, reductions in everything. And here we are. Nobody's out here helping us. This is our way. I'm confident this is our way as Floridians and Americans to stand up right now and say, enough's enough. Get back. You're out of control. We're reining it in. And I'm very confident, especially based on the feedback I've got this past week,
hmm.
that this is going to be a big hit come November.
Well, I agree with you. I think this is a topic that more people should be involved in. They should be doing the research. They should, if they challenge you, have them challenge you. You've got the information right there. You're not making up those numbers.
Sure. You can find
So
me online. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
yeah,
I've done the research. I've got the bill. I've got the budgets. I volunteer locally. I've worked with you. I've been in the recovery houses. I've volunteered my time.
I know you have.
I've been doing Habitat for Humanity. I'm not just some guy out here running for some office. I'm a normal citizen standing up for normal citizens.
Yeah.
And that's just what I want people to understand about me. Despite the noise, I'm here for my fellow man and my fellow Floridian and the people that are out here busting it every day, including the frontline workers who are being played to be the pawns in this. It's disturbing to me.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's too much to ask, Mike, that if we're going to be told, we're going to tell the citizens to show us where this money's going to come from, shame on you. What real leadership should be doing right now is coming up with 3, 4, 5 comprehensive plans, doing unbiased actual research into your budget on where you can make this work and what you're going to do for us as we put you in that position to make this work for us. And it's long overdue.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end of today, and I think we probably should have you back at least one more time between
Okay.
now and November. But here's the challenge, and I think we've talked off air about it. If there's anybody out there who disagrees and you want to come and speak and bring your facts,
Sure.
okay, you're more than welcome to do that. I'll also ask Chad that if somebody wanted to come on and the two of you are disagreeing on the fact, but you want to do it in a civil way and
Sure.
talk about that, you're willing to do that. So you're not running, you're not hiding, you're out there out in front with this information because you know the numbers that you're picking up out of our government agencies.
Right.
You're seeing it's not stuff you're making up. So if there's anybody else out there that would like to speak on this up, the same as Chad, a plus pro, if you're against it, come on and tell the people.
Sure.
See, that we're not afraid of people's having a rightful opinion.
Right. I agree.
When I say rightful opinion, when you're talking this kind of stuff, it's got to be based on facts,
Yeah. And I
not
agree.
your heart.
I agree. And I welcome that as well, Mike. I think
I
it's
know.
healthy. I will, if somebody's, if somebody wants to have a debate or they want to have a discussion about this, I'm all about it. I've been engaging. I'm not necessarily a big fan of social media, but I've been engaging in it far more lately. And I'm sure if there's one thing the opposition that on this matter is out there that we can agree on is it's a lot on a person raising a family to be engaged in this and see the emotions come alive and handle the comments and the insults that come with respect and staying above board. So I'm all about having conversations, but let's start coming up with some solutions. Let's be honest about this. If we got our biases, and we need to be clear about those because people will sniff them out quick and they're going to hold your feet to the fire.
Exactly. So you got to be part of the. You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem.
Right.
And if you're quiet on either side, you're part of the problem.
And if this isn't the solution, somebody tell me how we're going to provide real relief for Floridians right now. That's what I want to hear. If this
Okay,
isn't
everybody, you heard the challenge. Let's get you coming in and talking with us. I'm going to challenge him to something off air that I don't want to have make him commit to it this on air. But we're going to continue doing this one. I'm a resident here. I feel the pain. I'm retired. Okay. I have a limited income. With all the other increases that we've seen, if we can get this done properly, okay, it's going to benefit us.
Right.
It's going to benefit. It's going to benefit the entire community because if our community works on a true budget, not just inflated numbers.
Like you and I have to do.
Oh yeah, and eventually that's how we live.
Right.
So we got to have them living on a paycheck to paycheck reality and go from there. So Chad, I appreciate you being with us, taking the time to come in this morning
My
and
pleasure.
do this, and we'll get this out over the community because we hit a large audience now. For those who are listening, our typical audience, we're reaching tens of thousands. We can't tell how many for on everything, but we reach 150 to 225,000 every 28 days viewers.
Wow.
And shows like this will get up there.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of the times, Mike. People want answer. They want people that are disconnected from their biases, and they want to know, what are people talking about and what's the truth here? That's certainly the sign of what I'm feeling. So thanks
All
for
right.
having me, Mike. Thanks for
You're
helping.
welcome. Everybody, we're signing off.
Things are truly better with us.